Have you ever felt like you were playing a role in a conversation that didn't matter, or questioned why fitting in feels more like performance than connection? If so, you're not alone, and maybe, just maybe, you've been seeing something that others don't dare to admit. This video isn't for those content with surface-level chatter or applause from the crowd. It's for those who felt the quiet tension of disconnection, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, looked at society with a brutal clarity. What he saw was unsettling. Most people are trapped in an elaborate masquerade. They dress, speak, and behave not as an expression of who they are, but as a performance crafted to win approval. But here's a question almost no one dares to ask. Approval from whom? How often have you endured a shallow conversation just to avoid seeming rude? How many times have you laughed at a joke that didn't stir even a flicker of amusement inside you? How many times have you walked away from a social gathering feeling drained, like you'd bartered a piece of yourself for the vague comfort of acceptance? Now comes the question that slices deeper. What is the real cost of this performance? Schopenhauer argued that intelligence and social conformity rarely coexist in harmony. The more perceptive you are, the more absurd the social charade becomes. Not because you think you're better than others, but because you see what others try to ignore. You notice the masks, the half-truths camouflaged as kindness, the fragile architecture of a world held together by constant validation seeking. You see that people would rather be liked than be real, and more disturbingly, you realize they're okay with that. Society isn't designed to nourish deep thought. It's designed to distract you, keep you entertained, keep you agreeable. Because the moment you start to question, the illusion begins to fall apart. You begin to see that most relationships are stitched together by habit, not depth. That many conversations are simply echoes of what others expect to hear. That the pursuit of fitting in is, in fact, a slow erosion of the self. And here's the great paradox. If you're sharp enough to see through the illusion, you're also cursed with the loneliness that often follows. Because the more you think, the less you belong. Others can sense it. The way you don't leap into social hysteria. The way you don't perform rituals with the same unquestioning enthusiasm. And that threatens them. Your quiet refusal to play along disturbs the collective dream. As Schopenhauer once wrote, solitude is the fate of all great minds. And yes, that truth can sting. It stings because we're taught that happiness is found in connection, in being surrounded by friends, in blending into a tribe. But what if those connections feel hollow? What if the price of joining the crowd is the dulling of your intellect, your uniqueness, your peace? Then comes the turning point. You begin to pull back, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You start to value your time more than others' approval. You become selective with your energy. At first, that solitude feels like punishment, but slowly it transforms into something rare, a privilege, because in that quiet, you stumble upon something society tries to distract you from: peace of mind. Schopenhauer knew this well. For him, intelligence was both a light and a burden. The more you understand the mechanics of the world, the harder it becomes to delight in its illusions. The more you grasp human nature, the less interested you are in playing its tiresome games. Now, this is where many will misunderstand the message. This isn't about becoming a misanthrope. It's not about despising others or cutting off all contact. It's about discerning the difference between authentic interaction and social obligation. It's about giving yourself the freedom to choose when and with whom you connect. It's about shedding the weight of fitting in and understanding that true intelligence has no need for applause. And here's where something powerful begins to shift. When you stop seeking approval, something inside you becomes free. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll explore how this quiet inner shift doesn't isolate you but anchors you. And you may discover that solitude isn't the end of connection. It's the beginning of something far more meaningful. You've felt it, haven't you? That moment when someone looks at you differently, sensing something they can't quite name. They notice you're not grasping for their approval, that you don't flinch when left out of the next gathering, that your self-worth isn't anchored in being seen or praised. And it unsettles them, because most people are chained to a craving to be noticed, acknowledged, accepted. And you, by simply not playing that game, become a paradox. You become the quiet figure they can't explain, the one who doesn't beg to belong, the one who's free. And that, ironically, gives you power over what they chase. True freedom begins the moment you no longer need the world's applause. So next time someone says, "You should socialize more," or "You'd be happier if you tried harder to fit in," remember this: it's not you who's broken. You've just seen the truth. A truth too uncomfortable for most to accept. And once you've swallowed that truth, that most social interactions are just carefully rehearsed theater, you start noticing something else: silence. And silence, my friend, becomes your most unexpected ally. We live in a world addicted to noise, social media, shallow chatter, headlines engineered to spark outrage. Noise is constant because silence makes you think, and thinking is dangerous. Thinking might wake you up. Schopenhauer understood this not as theory, but as lifestyle. He didn't withdraw from society out of bitterness. He withdrew out of clarity. He knew that the constant buzz of the world doesn't expand the mind. It clouds it. But this is where people often get it wrong. Solitude is not isolation. There's a massive difference between choosing to be alone and being excluded against your will. Being alone is strength. It's the deliberate choice to trade quantity for quality, to favor meaningful thought over meaningless noise. Being isolated, on the other hand, is desperation, a curse born from seeking acceptance and never receiving it. And here comes the paradox. Those who chase approval are often denied it, but those who walk away from it never truly walk alone. Because when you stop bending yourself to earn a place in the crowd, something magical happens. You begin attracting people who resonate with the real you. Not the version you edited for approval, but the version that questions, thinks, and prefers silence over small talk. Intelligence isn't antisocial. What intelligence resists is the trivial. Think about it. The great minds of history, Leonardo da Vinci, Newton, Tesla, weren't antisocial, but they refused to waste time on noise. Da Vinci spent years submerged in his sketches, content in silence. Newton withdrew when he realized that his mind disrupted ordinary thinking. Tesla worked in solitude with a passion so intense, people called him strange. They were labeled eccentric, difficult, even lonely. But were they? Or were they simply unwilling to dilute their thoughts to fit into a world that demands comfort over truth? Because that's the secret no one tells you. Social life, as we've been taught to value it, is often a loop of predictable scripts. From the moment we're born, we're taught that being accepted is everything, that to belong is to be safe, that solitude is danger. But they don't tell you this, that many friendships are forged from fear of being alone, not genuine connection, that crowds can be the loneliest places of all, that the best ideas, the most profound revolutions, the thoughts that shook the world, were born in silence, in solitude, away from the noise. And yet, some misunderstand all this. They swing too far in the other direction, thinking the answer is to reject the world entirely, to hide, to become hermits. But that's not the solution, because true power isn't in escape. True power is in discernment. It's knowing when to engage with the world and when to disappear. It's walking through the noise untouched and then returning with clarity, with depth, with force. It's moving quietly when the world gets too loud and stepping into the light when it matters most. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll uncover what it means to carry that power with grace, to live in society without being consumed by it. The most powerful warriors are not the ones constantly seen on the battlefield, but the ones who move in silence, striking only when the moment matters. Think of history's greatest strategists. They rarely stood at the center of the chaos, but when they acted, the outcome was undeniable. Their presence didn't demand attention. It commanded it through results, not noise. Those who truly understand life are neither slaves to society nor fugitives from it. They're silent players. They move without broadcasting, build without boasting, and by the time the world notices their brilliance, they've already won. Schopenhauer once said, "Superior intelligence is destined for solitude, but not as a curse. It's a distinct advantage, because in solitude, you're finally free to build something meaningful, something real. No distractions, no masks, no applause needed." But what happens to those who never break free, to those still chasing approval like air? They fall into a quiet prison. Every photo they post, every story they share, every opinion they shape, it's all engineered to provoke a reaction, a like, a comment, some tiny fleeting proof that they exist. But here's the truth, raw and unforgiving. If your existence depends on the approval of others, then you haven't truly lived. You've merely reflected the expectations of those around you. And that is the opposite of freedom. Because real freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want. It's the ability to do what's right for you, even when no one is watching, even when no one claps. It's being at peace in silence, undisturbed by the absence of noise, untouched by the pull of distraction. If silence unsettles you, if being alone stirs anxiety rather than clarity, then you're not free yet. You're a prisoner of noise. Schopenhauer understood this. That's why he stepped back, not in hatred, but in strategy. Only from a distance can you see the chaos clearly. Only in stillness can you hear your own voice rise above the crowd. And if you've made it here, reading these final words, then part of you already knows. You've felt the dissonance of modern life. You've felt the emptiness of surface-level exchanges. You've sensed that true growth doesn't come from more stimulation, but from introspection. So the question is no longer whether you understand. The question is, will you accept it? Because once you do, there's no going back. After that moment of clarity, small talk becomes unbearable. Fitting in feels like betrayal. You can't force yourself to enjoy what now feels hollow. You can't pretend that another round of praise will fill the void. That's the point of no return. And yes, it's terrifying. Most people spend their lives folding themselves into tiny boxes, smiling when they'd rather speak, staying silent to avoid tension, cutting pieces of themselves off just to fit neatly into someone else's narrative. But you can't unsee what you've seen. You now know the truth. Life isn't about fitting in. It's about aligning with what truly resonates, and then following that truth, even if it means walking alone. Now here's the most brutal and beautiful paradox. The more authentically you live, the more others are drawn to you. Not because you tried to be magnetic, but because authenticity is so rare, so powerful, so liberating, that it becomes impossible to ignore. Those who are free, truly free, don't seek followers, but they're followed anyway. So I'll ask you, what will you do with this truth? You could forget it. Close the tab. Scroll on. Go back to pretending. Blend back into the mold. Keep chasing what you've been told to want. Or you could do something harder, something braver. You could accept the discomfort that comes with living fully awake. You could embrace being misunderstood. You could stop betraying yourself to keep the peace. And you could begin. Start living for you, not for the crowd. Because in the end, there are only two kinds of people: those who adapt to the world, and those who find themselves in spite of it. Most will choose the first. It's easier, more convenient, less risky, but a rare few choose the second, and those few change everything. So, tell me, which one are you? If you've made it here, if something deep within you stirred while listening, then I want you to leave this phrase in the comments. Silence is power. It's how I'll know you're part of this quiet revolution, a community of minds who dare to live by their own rhythm. And if this message struck a chord, subscribe, because this journey is just beginning. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, walk silently and walk with strength.